Oh, is that okay? Okay, well that's fine. That's fine.
I'm not so sure I could find one because
You have
I've moved around so much.
Yeah.
I may have lost some of them.
Well, I'll tell you what. What we can do is, if you can, between now and Thursday, if you can find 2 or 3, if you can find, you can just bring them to the studio on Thursday, and they can shoot them right there before we get started.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to dig.
Yeah, well, you don't dig too much. I don't know if you had even if it's just you have your official Navy photo or something like that somewhere, or anything like that, or just anything. If you can find anything at all, 1 photo, 2 photos, 3 photos, anything from your service or just your official Navy photo when you were a young sailor or whatever,
Yeah.
Anything that you can find, that would be great. But if you can't find anything, that's fine also.
I'm inquisitive as to why you're interested in a younger looking photo, unless it's to compare age with age or something.
No, it's just my show. I've been doing this show for 4 years, and I just, as a matter of tradition with the show, I always just show some photos of back of when we were talking about
you've been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah, on KAMU. Sure have. And Bill Harper told me about you.
Who?
Bill Harper.
Yeah.
He was the one that told me about you. I did a show with Bill Harper about 3 or 4 months ago. I did a show with him, and he was the one that told me about you. Have you ever seen my show on KAMU?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Veterans of the Valley.
Yeah.
Been doing it for about 4 years. I've interviewed about 130 veterans probably in that amount of time, and so tell me about your story. Tell me, you're in World War II, right? You were on a.
Let me. Now I had Mr. Youngkin.
Did he write about you?
In the paper.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you'd want a copy of that in some of my short stories or not.
Sure. Anything that you could do that I could borrow.
Do you want me to bring them in Thursday?
Well, no, I need them before that. Because I need to be prepared for the interview. So I need. Do you have the Youngkin article? What have you got?
Let me see.
Can I make a copy of that, or can I just borrow it and give it back to you Thursday?
You can.
Show me what you got.
Look, I may have something here.
Yeah, anything you got written that can help me.
I have, as I was going along here and there, I have written some short stories.
About your service?
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, that's great.
As a matter of fact, what I'm thinking about doing is I may keep on writing some short stories and see if I can get them published in any way.
Yes, sir. Let me see
I
what
don't know whether it'd be worthwhile or not, but you want to look at them now, or?
Well, no, I'd like to take them with me and then give them back to you on Thursday if I can.
Okay.
That way I can. I'll pick anything, and I'll take care of them, and
yeah, I know you'll take care of them.
and then hand them all back to you on Thursday.
I'm running out of some of them, see.
Yeah. No, I'll take care of them and hand everything back to you on Thursday.
Now, this is just a possibility. See, what I did was there was a plane that kamikazed the second time on the Drexler that was a destroyer right in front of us.
You were on a destroyer escort, right?
No, I was not on. Now that Bill Harper screwed up everything.
Oh, he did? Okay. I was just.
I mean, who's going to take an LST across the Erie Canal? You can't do it. I mean, he really botched things up by saying the things that he did, which was so.
Well, I want the true story.
Erroneous. But anyway.
Okay.
That's my ship from World War II that I made the invasion of Okinawa with. That may be
What
it.
was this? The USS
It's an LCS, Landing Craft Support.
Landing Craft Support. Okay.
And the reason that they used it was that we were loaded down with guns. And so we fit in with the destroyers when we were at Okinawa by having us out on a radar picket station 50 miles north of the island, see?
Right.
And so we were there to bait the kamikazes as they left Japan, heading for the island of Okinawa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of these stories are from my practice too. I don't know whether you're interested in any of that, but here's one, and here's one. These are just short stories that may be of interest to you. Now, this is from Vietnam. Later, see. Now, I'll outline for you what you want to know about my.
Yeah, sort of the chronology of it.
Yeah, the sequence of things. These are things that you can skim through.
Yes, sir.
And see which ones you want to use if you do, see? Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now,
So what did you do at the,
all right,
what did you do down the Mississippi and on the Erie Canal?
well, let me just go through things as
Okay.
fast as I can. Okay?
That'll be fine.
You can stop me whenever you want to, or
No, that's fine.
enlarge on it or so on.
That's fine.
But anyway, when I was 17, and I did not lie.
Okay.
I mean, I had to get my father to sign for me. As a matter of fact, that makes an interesting story. I had $20 to my name, and we went to Alexandria. I went to Alexandria, Louisiana, to go in the Navy, to be sworn in there. I had to go on down to New Orleans to get started and get my physical and so on. But anyway, what happened was that my father had signed for me Dwight N. Davis. And they said, no, when you're 17, you have to have the full name. So I took the $20 that I had and got into a taxi cab and went back to Giddings to get his signature Newton, see?
Right.
And so there I went to boot camp without a penny to my name.
I'll be darned, 'cause you had to pay for the cab to get it signed correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and that brings up an interesting thing. When we were in El Paso and we pulled off to the side, these big old guys that were with us, they started drinking and everything like that. And I was 17 and I just sort of hunched back in the corner and said, maybe they won't notice me, because I didn't want them bugging me. But anyway, then I went on out to boot camp.
Where was that?
And at San Diego. And what happened was that I had gone in between my junior and senior year when I was 17, and when it came to taking the examination to see if we would go to a service school or not, I made pretty good grades except for spelling, and they had me down for a 27. And I told this guy, I says, that's wrong. I know I made better than that, than a 27 in spelling. And he says, well, how do you know? And I says, well, look at the rest of these grades. And so he did. He says, I believe you're right. You ought to go over and talk to him. So he let me go over and talk to him, and they had meant to say 77 instead of 27, see? So I got to go to a service school, and at the time I thought I wanted to be an aviation radio man, but they sent me to the best school.
Yeah.
It brought me more things than I could ever imagine. I was sent to quartermaster school, which was navigation and signaling, not quartermaster in the Army where you're handing out clothes and things.
Right.
This was navigation and signaling, and that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Because that got me into a lot of the good different things. And the first thing that we did was after going to Little Creek, Virginia, and being assigned to the amphibious force, we went up to North Tonawanda, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought LCTs down the Niagara River to Buffalo, and then started across the Erie Canal and across the Finger Lakes and down the Hudson to New York City.
I'll be darned.
And that was with LCTs.
Yes, sir.
Bill said LSTs. You
Right.
can't take an LST across the Erie Canal. But anyway, that was wonderful duty.
Yeah.
And then they sent us out to St. Louis, and we were doing the same thing from all the tributaries to the Mississippi.
I see.
And that was where I got on LSTs and everything else, because we were in the amphibious forces, but it was so interesting because I had gone to school in Louisiana at Glenmore.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd go on down to New Orleans, and I'd run into people that I knew down there that were classmates of mine in Louisiana.
Right.
And so it's been it was a very interesting life, but that was for 2.5 years, and then they sent me back to Norfolk to retrain, and that's when I got on the landing craft support, LCS.
Right.
And we went from there down to Key West, Florida, and then through the locks and up to San Diego, and then from there to Pearl, and to Eniwetok, and across to Saipan. We ended up in Saipan and waited there maybe 2 weeks to get our orders, and they knew what they was going to do with us, and they sent us down to make a landfall on Guam. A landfall is where you sight, and then we turned north, and the reason was that they broke open our orders and told us what we were going to do, that we were going to be in on a feint operation at Okinawa.
Mm-hmm. This was in 1945?
That was in 1945.
Okay.
See, we left Norfolk the day after Christmas, December the 26th.
Of 44.
Of 44, right.
Okay.
And but Tokyo Rose came on the radio and told us everything that we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were sent up above the island because we had this little gunship that was just loaded down with guns. They sent us up to 50 miles above the island to be on a radar picket station, and we would bait the kamikazes as they were coming down from Japan to Okinawa. We would bait them and try to say, hey, come over here and shoot at us so we can shoot at you, and keep them from going on down to the island at Okinawa. And so that worked out very well, but it was a very interesting but tragic operation, because we were shooting down these kamikazes, and so we noticed that the destroyer that was with us, we were coming in to be with him. They were our boss, going to be our boss, see, and so there was one kamikaze that came in and dived on the Drexler, the destroyer, but it didn't go down. But they radioed us and said, we're helpless in the water, get to us as soon as you can, but we're not gonna sink. So, but then this guy came in and the second kamikaze, but we could recognize the fact that he was not an ordinary pilot. And sure enough, we had later found out that he was the instructor for the kamikazes.
I see.
And so that's where my divine wind story comes from. See?
Right.
And
that's who this fellow is, Hami Fuji?
yeah.
Hajime Fumi?
Yeah, and they have a
Fuji.
statue of him at the museum in Japan now.
Uh-huh.
And I want to go to Japan maybe and look into this a little bit more.
So he was the kamikaze.
Yeah, he was the second kamikaze.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to do this. He was a family man, and he wanted to be a kamikaze pilot, and the government said, no, you're a family man, you can't do this. Guess what he done? He had his wife drown 2 of his children and herself in the river so that he could be free, and that's the way that he ended up being the second kamikaze into the destroyer Drexler. Isn't that an amazing story?
His loyal wife. Her husband told her what she must do to prepare for the coming glorious finality. For the children, to sacrifice the children and then herself. Wow. December 15th, she drowned the children and herself. Their souls will be waiting to join Fuji, and they would all meet again. Their beginning of heaven, no longer that. Fuji can now join the Kamikaze Corps. Wow, what a story. So where did you discover this story about him? I mean, where did...
Bits and pieces. There were fellows that were, the survivors of the Drexler, the destroyer, we picked up 119 of them. And later, when we had reunions with each other, they told us that one of the guys had gone to Japan and seen this statue at this museum in Japan, and they told us some of the story. So I bits and pieced these things together. See?
I see.
And that's the reason I want to go to Japan, to learn a little bit more, because I think this will be the ace of ace stories if I ever get all of it in, see.
How far away was the Drexler from your craft? Just
Probably
right,
a mile.
About a mile away?
Yeah, from our ship, yeah.
So you personally, you were a...
here, let me explain.
Yeah.
My job was in the radio room at first. And what I would do is that I was a quartermaster, and like I told you, it won me a lot of good jobs. But anyway, I was there in the radio room with the radar man and the radio man, and I was the quartermaster, and I would track these planes as they would leave Japan down to us. And when they got within 25 miles of us, and we could see them on our radar, we'd start shooting at them to get them over to us instead of going on down to the island of Okinawa where all the capital ships were at.
Right.
The battle wagons and the cruisers and the destroyers and so on and so forth. And what we would do is we would bait them so that they would get over to us so that we could shoot at them instead of them going on down to Okinawa. And so I've got...
Did you down most of them before they were able to hit their
7,
targets?
I think it was, and assisted on 3 or 4 others.
Right.
And it was what we were there on purpose for. We were really doing real well.
Yeah.
But it was known as Coffin's Corner because it was in a direct line between Japan and Okinawa, and that's where we had to go most of the time. And our captain was really hoggish for being a big hero and so on. But it got us a lot of interesting things.
Right. So but your gunship was not ever kamikaze.
That's where our captain had gone around the world in a sailboat, and he knew what to do.
I see.
We would be downwind and the down sun and so on and so forth. He'd figure all this out whenever we started a battle, and they'd have to fire at us being blinded by the sun and so on, because that's what he'd do.
They couldn't see you. Yeah.
He'd get us in the right position.
Wow.
And he was smart.
He was sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, but all these things are so damned interesting. It's just amazing that I got to see all this. And see that after that, I came back, finished high school, went on and was in the reserves, and finally got in medical school. And after I got out of medical school,
now where did all this happen?
Beg pardon?
Where?
In Texas here.
Okay.
And see, I came home to Giddings, Texas after the war.
Right.
my folks, I had enlisted in Louisiana, but my folks were living in Giddings, Texas at that time, and so I came home and finished high school and college and medical school, and after about 7 years, I couldn't stand it any longer. The Vietnam War was going on.
Where'd you go to college and medical school?
I went to TLC at Texas when it was a 2-year school at Seguin first.
Texas Lutheran?
And then ended up going to Southwest Texas State Teachers College when it was a teachers college.
And did you go to medical school there?
I actually taught a year.
Oh, okay.
At Marion, Texas, a little bitty high school, as part of my training.
And where'd you go to medical school? At Southwest Texas?
At Galveston.
Oh, Galveston.
University of Texas Medical
School. Yeah, okay.
So all this stuff about Ike and Galveston is of extreme interest to me because that was my school.
Right.
I graduated in '54.
Right.
I've been in practice 56 years.
So you were going to school all during the Korean War, right?
Well, here's what happened. That's an interesting little story. I had laid out a year because I thought I needed to make some money, and I was a chemist at the Texas Department of Public Safety at Camp Mabry. And so when I got accepted into medical school, my boss came around and said, asked me if I would take a temporary job so he could get somebody that would be permanent as the chemist. And so I went down to I was in the reserve, so I went. I asked them if they'd put me on active duty for training, and they said yes. And I was in downtown Austin throwing out excess documents from reservist records. And along came the Korean War, and they froze me. So to get out of it and go on to medical school, I heard that the Air Force was giving commissions in the reserve. See, they were brand new and they were needing volunteers, and so I heard that they would give a commission to anybody that had been a former first three grader and had a degree. So I went down to the Air Force, and they took me in as a second lieutenant in the intelligence corps.
I see.
And that took me off of active duty, and I went on through medical school. And while I was in medical school, I got to make a little extra money being in the reserves.
So you were in the Air Force now. So you had been.
I was in the Air Force Reserve.
Yeah, you had been Navy Reserve, right?
I had been Navy Reserve during the war.
Right. Yeah.
And then I was Army, and finally Air Force Reserve.
Air Force Reserve, okay. And you went back to school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got my degree, and then afterwards, I couldn't keep up with the Air Force, so I got in the National Guards, and then I got interested in aerospace medicine because I had my own field and everything at West Columbia, and had my own plane and everything, and so I went back on active duty by going to Brooks Air Force Base and taking a course in aerospace medicine, and after that I went on active duty, and my first assignment was to go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, because the guy there, the 45th battalion, had gone to Vietnam, and they swiped up this flight surgeon that was at the field, and so they were void of a flight surgeon. So I was at Camp Mabry actually going through what they wanted me to go through boots again, which was sort of silly because I'd been in the reserves all this time and had gone through boots years before in the Navy, but they wanted me to do it. So I was at Camp Mabry going through that when they said, hey, we got to send you up to Fort Sill because they lost their flight surgeon. So I went up there with them, and then while I was there, I said, "Oh hell, I'm going to have some adventure out of this. I'm going to go to jump school." So I went to jump school while I was at Fort Sill, and then came back, and that changed things, and so they sent me to Fort Sam Houston to go to the advanced course, and And so then I went to the 82nd Airborne Division, and from then got my residency in aerospace medicine, and then after that they sent me to Vietnam. So I've got some stories from Vietnam.
What year was that? When did you go to country in Vietnam?
To 1967.
1967?
I was there in 67 and 68 in Vietnam.
And you were a medic?
Yeah, I was a doctor by that
Right.
time. Yeah, I'd been in practice 7 years.
Right. Where were you? I know that's here, but where were you stationed in Vietnam? And
I was sent to the 1st Cav Division
mm-hmm.
in Vietnam, and was there 67 to 68.
Mm-hmm.
And came back, and they sent me to Norfolk to be a purple suitor. You know, the arm the so I went through the Armed Forces Staff College at Norfolk, Virginia, and then that brought me down to MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, with Strike Command, and that brought me a very interesting job. I went to the Middle East and Africa, south of the Sahara, and all that kind of stuff, because that's where Throckmorton was the four-star Army commander, and his deputy was a 3-star Air Force general. So that was a very interesting 2 or 3 years there, and that's where I made my got my Master Blasters and jumped my 65th jump at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida.
So you jumped how many times? How many jumps do you have?
65.
65. That was your last one. Well, in Vietnam, you must have learned a lot of serious doctrine there. I mean,
well, yes. As a matter of fact, I was quite proud of what I had accomplished, because they had sent me to the to be trained in aerospace medicine, which was preventive medicine.
Right.
So while I was with the 1st Cav, we had a big blowout of 7,000 troopers coming down with Shigella dysentery, and the way it wound up was that there was a couple of guys from the 173rd that had parked outside of our training area, and it was right by our water intake, and the engineers had not been backflashing the diatomaceous earth well enough, and so we had 7,000 troopers come down with Shigella dysentery, and so I was instrumental in the guys being treated with tetracycline and getting back to and being rehydrated, and we just waited until we went into the Ashall Valleys about a week or 10 days later than we had been scheduled to, because of this 7,000 troopers coming down with Shigella dysentery.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had some real fun experiences and some interesting.
I even read here where you were actually hit one time. I mean, your plane was.
Yes.
Or was it your helicopter?
It was the helicopter.
Your gunship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't exactly a gunship. You see, the medevac, 16 helicopter ambulances were under my command for medevac.
Right.
And I and the medevac detachment commander, Doris Goodwin, would fly together to a lot of different places so that I could check on my troops, because I was the commander of the medical battalion, see, and had 4 clearing companies under my command, as well as the medevac detachment command, see, and we were out flying just nice and level at probably 3,000 or 4,000 feet, and all of a sudden we had this loud bang in the back of our aircraft, and so he landed, and we got out to see what had happened, and this heat-seeking missile had gone up to the side. See, the funnel is in tungsten, but to the side is a cowling that is out of aluminum.
Right.
And this heat-seeking missile had gone between the titanium funnel and the aluminum cowling and blew out there. And that's what we heard. And so it's a good thing that it didn't go up the funnel, because that would have been the end of us.
That would have been it, yeah.
So
this was Ashaw Valley, and this was Cav 1. Is this what was depicted in We Were Soldiers?
yeah, brethren.
The book
Yeah.
that later was the the movie
Yeah.
with what's his name?
I was with the Cav, and I think that was
we were soldiers. We were soldiers, and they were young ones.
Yeah.
General Moore. Moore was the. And then Mel Gibson made the movie later on. We Were Soldiers. I think that's what was depicted there. Was First Cav.
I didn't get to see all those movies because I was in Vietnam and in the service and just didn't.
Right. Well, this was a movie just a couple of years ago that Mel Gibson made called We Were Soldiers. It's the best Vietnam movie ever made. It was tremendous. Well, wow. So then, when did you leave Vietnam?
68. We made Big Tet.
Yeah.
And we got shot at a couple of times otherwise, besides this incident that I told you about, because I had a company down at just across the river.
Right.
C Company. They had formerly been down at Fontiette, but we had to go down and check on them every once in a while. And the morning of Big Tet, the fog was really keeping us down low, and so we followed a railroad track down to just check on Company C and see how they were doing, because what happened was that they had, when they were coming up from Fontiette, the bridge across the river was blown up, and so they had to stop and stay down there. And the VCs were rocketing over them, and it was making them real nervous. So we had to go down and check on them every once in a while. But going down there, we had to fly real low because the fog was so heavy that morning. And so when we passed there, what was there? I forget the name of the town that they were at, but anyway, we were down at this railroad track, and when we went by them, they shot at us. And then coming back, they shot at us again, because we were going down to check on C Company and see how they were doing. You know, it was where they had their a lot of their troops and so on. It was their something like West Point, but it
yes,
was
sir.
there.
So you came back from Vietnam and you went back into practice, or what?
No, what happened was when I came back from Vietnam, they sent me to Norfolk to be to the Armed Forces Staff College, and that
yes,
sent
sir.
me down to MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, to be with Strike Command. And I was with them a couple of years, and then finally ended up at Fort Sam getting ready to get out. And that brings up an interesting story, because I was there with the doctor that was waiting on LBJ to come in, and he died en route.
Oh, okay.
He was coming in by helicopter from Johnson City.
From the ranch?
Yeah. And the doctor that was going to see him, I knew him, and so I was standing there just sort of talking to him when we knew that Johnson was coming in, and he died en route back to Fort Sam Houston.
I see.
And I knew LBJ from the beginning, because I was at Giddings when he came there to campaign for being senator.
Right.
and he pulled into Giddings with a big long semi-trailer truck with some with a hillbilly band and some ice down Budweiser beer, and everybody went through the line shaking his hand. So I shook the hand of LBJ while he was campaigning, and then saw him when he died. I mean, didn't see him, but was waiting on him when he came in and he died.
Right. And this you were at Fort Sam at the time.
Yeah.
Right. And then after Fort Sam, where?
Well, that's when I got out in 1979. I actually had been slated to get out in 77, but I had a little attack on my heart, so I stayed in another couple of years and got out in 79, and then I stayed there.
And you were in the Air Force now, right? Or you're in the Army?
I was in the Army when I got out.
Okay.
But then I went to work for the Air Force at Ellington.
Okay.
No, not Ellington. Brook.
Okay.
And so that I ended up there, and then while I was there, I got the chance to go to California and make some more money, so I went out to California for 20 years. Then when I came back, I came here.
You came here?
Yeah.
And how long have you been
here?
Practicing here, yeah.
About 4 years.
About 4 years?
Yeah, well, I wasn't in practice all that time. I laid out a couple of years until I found this lady here doing drug alcohols drug urines and breath alcohol tests, and she wanted a doctor.
Right.
So I came along and I do her physicals on bus drivers and truck drivers for the big companies like Knife River and Halliburton and those people. And it's sort of it's just part-time, and I'm winding down, and that I do that
so that's what you do. That's what you do now. You do physicals for people wanting to get those licenses to drive the big trucks.
Yeah, the trucks and the bus drivers.
And the bus drivers.
Yeah.
And you've been here about 4 years. So what brought you here to Bryan College Station?
Well, my daughter lived in Bryan, and she has bipolar, and she had 2 kids that had ADHD, and so I thought it'd be the place to come to, but they're actually so busy I hardly ever get to see them. But it brought me to her, and because I went up and tried to get some extra training, and they said, you can't do it after you've been out of the service for 10 years. You lose some of those benefits. So, but I did find her, and I started working for her a couple of years ago.
Well, this is a fascinating story, and I can't wait to tell it on the show. I know you're going to Dallas on Thursday, so we can probably get started a little bit early. Let's say, can you be there about 2 o'clock?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and we'll get started early.
Would you like to do it earlier than that?
No, I can't do it any earlier than that because they got students that will probably get started actually about 2:15. But if you get there about 2 o'clock, we can get started about 2:15, and you'll be out of there about 3 o'clock.
Let me talk to them.
See what kind of appointments you get.
Donna.
It's very easy to get to. Where will you be? Will you be coming from here?
Yeah.
Okay. Just go.
You know where we're at now, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Donna may know where. What is it?
It's KAMU radio. It's on the campus.
Oh, it's on the campus?
Mm-hmm.
CAMU.
Yeah. Okay. Here's.
Yeah, I'm hard of hearing, so I thought you said K.
No, yes, KAMU radio. Okay, here is George Bush. Here's Texas Avenue. This is University. And here's this is Welborn.
Welborn, yeah.
Here's this is Kyle Field right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Just best thing to do is just go down Texas to George Bush and turn right, and go all the way down. The last street before you get to Welborn is right there. That's the last street that goes into campus.
Right.
That's called Houston Street.
Well, now, isn't that the same place that we go to do these urines on some of these football players and things like that?
Probably so. That may be where you go. Right here is the former students building, the big former students building right there on that corner. And you're going to turn right here. And KAMU is right here on the, it's just about a block down on Houston Street. This is called Houston Street, right?
Well, I'll make a dry run.
Well, it's very easy to
So
get
I'll
to.
be sure to do it.
You'll turn right on Houston Street, and the first building on your left, that's KAMU, right there. That's the TV station, right there.
On the right, yeah.
On your left, well, it'll be on your left after you turn. You'll turn right on Houston Street, and then KAMU will be the first building on your left.
Okay.
This is the big former students building right here.
Well, I think that's where we were seeing the football players and doing urines on.
Well, that's the big former students association building. Here's Kyle Field. All the football offices are right there. But right there, the first building on your left is KAMU.
Okay.
And
2 o'clock Thursday.
yeah, 2 p.m. Thursday.
18th.
That'd be the 18th. Okay, yep.
Okay.
Right. And where you'll park is, there's
I think there's some disabled parking over
okay,
here.
you have a disabled pass? If you go, well, then if you just turn left right into the parking lot, which is right beyond the building, right there, if you go all the way back behind the building, there's handicap parking right there behind the building, right there by the ramp, and behind the building. You can park right there, right next to a ramp, and you'll go in the back door.
Okay. Now, I don't know how much time you'll have, but you ought to take these short stories along.
Oh, I'm going to read them all. I'm going to take them, I'm going to make copies of them for myself, so that I can mark on them and write on them. And then I'll make my own notes from what we've said. I recorded everything.